why don't we get into biggest announcement? I'll start because I have two, and Dan just mentioned one of them.
Whoops.
The release date for Final Fantasy VII.
That was pretty big.
That
Really?
made me audibly, Matt could hear it from my room. That made me audibly cheer when I saw new footage. The game was real. There's a release date, and they've so far stuck to that release date, and that just to me was like one of the biggest announcements of the year. The other one, and I guess both of these are like fanboy announcements, but the other one would be just a huge surprise. We all agreed that Nintendo won E3, but their final announcement of the Breath of the Wild sequel, that was like, oh my god, really?
Yeah, that
like
came out of
Breath
nowhere.
of the Wild 2? Like that was huge because I loved Breath of the Wild. That was like my favorite game. That was my favorite game of the year that came out. And to just like have like a direct sequel to that, which is so like that doesn't happen all the time with
Yeah, especially with Zelda games. Like they seem
games.
to shy away from that. It seems like we get like one system cycle if we're lucky.
So that was just huge for me. Those were, I think, the two biggest like announcements, not to be confused with the dumpster fires or the happening moments or anything like that. Those are the two that stuck out to me. Those are the two that made me like as a fanboy of both of those series. Obviously, Final Fantasy VII was like the game that like I feel like got me into games, and like Zelda is my favorite franchise. So to me, those were the two biggest announcements of the year. Like if I had to pick like maybe something that I wasn't a fanboy of that was like just like an oh my god huge announcement. Because we already knew the Cyberpunk release date, right? Did we?
I mean, we learned
being
it this
announced?
year, but
I guess like yeah, the Cyberpunk release date, that was a pretty big thing because they brought like Keanu Reeves out on stage and all that stuff. But I mean, that's all I can think of. What about you guys?
So I had Breath of the Wild 2 as well, because that was kind of, like you said, that was, I think, part of what made that so special was just how few people had even thought that was like a possibility. A lot of these announcements are games that you kind of hear rumblings about for, 6 months to a year before you even hear the official announcement. But I didn't really hear anything about like, oh, they're making a new Breath of the Wild game. It was a lot more like, oh, hey, they're making that Metroid Prime. Maybe they're going to make a Metroid Prime trilogy. Like
they had
just
mentioned
little things like that, but
simply
never
that they were just working on the next Zelda game.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool that they just kind of announced it like that. So on top of that, I was some other ones I was thinking was, of course, already mentioned it. Diablo 4 is kind of a big announcement. As a fan of the like kind of Diablo games and just kind of wanting to give it another shot, and the last one I think came out in 2012, like a while back.
Oh my god, Diablo 3 came out in 2012?
yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh my god, I thought that was like a current gen game.
Well, they've made it. It's kind of like Skyrim. They
Yeah,
just kept-
I mean, it came on
kept touching
PC
it
a
up,
lot. Yeah,
adding-
it was on PC a long time ago, and then they eventually ported it to PS4 and Xbox
Oh
and all
wow,
that stuff. So.
I had no idea it was that old.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to kind of jump into a new world. I want to see if they kind of make some interesting changes, because there was a lot of problems with that game, especially with the auction house and the way that items dropped. It was kind of super random and super, I don't want to say unfair, but it was like almost impossible to get the items that you wanted when it first released. And I know a lot of that stuff has been fixed, but still it'd be nice if they could start with all that stuff at the right place to begin with. Some other announcements that were pretty important were obviously the Xbox One system. Just the fact that we got like a look at what the new one, the Xbox Series X. Just the fact that we got a look at it, even if it doesn't.
We all knew that was coming though. Eventually,
Yeah, we knew it was coming, but
we didn't expect to see
the Game
the
Awards
actual system
that was something
that early.
I was
like a big
expecting
Duke.
like
It is a
Q1
weird-
at the earliest we would figure like they typically in the typical fashion they would just have like a an hour long or 2 hour long like have the big honchos come up and release the game, the system, maybe the price and things like that, and do it all at once. But just to have it like the year before at like a Game Awards is kind of interesting, and also the fact that the system looks kind of so different than anything we've seen before. It's not just like a rectangle that you put on your entertainment
it is just a
system.
rectangle. It's
Well, it's
just
like a tall
misshapen
cube.
one.
Yeah, I guess.
Bulky box. Well, they nailed the
not
box
thin.
part.
Yeah, and then the last one I was going to mention was just kind of maybe more of an honorable mention, but just the first PS4 game, Godfall, looked really interesting to me. PS5 game, sorry. That got also announced at the Game Awards. So just just again,
What's that game called?
Godfall.
Godfall.
Just the fact that we're
It's
really
a looter hack and slash.
Yep. Which again,
My
like,
two favorite things.
I don't really love hack and slashes, but I love kind of looter shooter games. So I'm kind of interested to see if this'll work. Like how many different melee weapons with different attributes can you make in a game where the loot system would be interesting. But again, they've revealed so much that it's just kind of a lot of stuff we'll have to learn. Hopefully by E3 of next year. Dan, did you have any?
Yeah. So for biggest announcement, my favorite is also different from what I know should be probably considered the biggest announcement.
All right.
My favorite was Resident Evil 3 finally officially being announced. Along with a date that is very early that I thought it would take them a long time to do.
Yeah, that was quick. It's coming out in a few months.
That was the biggest shock that I was like, oh, neat, it's a real thing. That's why with Zelda Breath of the Wild, that's neat. But when something doesn't have a date and it's just like an announcement, I feel like, all right, that's just telling that they're working on it. I mean, Final Fantasy 15 was announced like years before, and then nothing happened.
Final Fantasy 13 Versus, and then who knew?
So but obviously, I have to give it to the biggest announcement and shock for me, which was an actual release date for Final Fantasy 7. And now that they're actually sticking to it, it doesn't seem real that they're gonna do that. Like, all right, there's gonna be something.
Yeah, I still feel like they're gonna announce like, oh, we're delaying it till whenever we want to.
It's kind of like one of those like Half-Life things. Like, it's just never gonna happen, and it's like, all right, what's gonna screw up now? But when it actually got a release date, and it was pretty soon. It wasn't like, hey, we're working on this, and kind of like Final Fantasy 15 again, and everything with Square Enix takes years. So. Granted, it's not the full game, but
yeah, it's the thing. I feel like that's why they were able to get it out.
But even then, it could feel like a
Midgar.
full game. They could make it like. I just hope it's not like continued in blah like.
Well, I think it's going to be both of those things. I think it's going to be a full-fledged game and also have that kind of because we all know that there's more.
Well, yeah, but I mean, games like God of War 2 ended like what the hell, like in the middle of in the middle of like a fight, pretty much, and literally he was like getting back to the fight, and it was like. God of War 3, 10 years. Like, what the hell?
I think that Final Fantasy 7, to me, that being release date was also a huge deal because you remember they had to like restart production on it.
Yeah, so it wasn't expected, and to finally have it, release, that was easily, like I said, as I love Final Fantasy 7, but I obviously like Resident Evil better, but I know obviously this, and when it comes to the gaming community, this was a bigger announcement by far. Because this is kind of one of those things that it's like, oh, it might not happen. It may happen. We'll see. Resident Evil 2 Remake just came out last year. So it's like they have the capability. They put it out. It sold well. It's going to happen. But it was just, I think the Resident Evil 3 one just shocked me so much that it was so quick. It's April. It's, it's almost here kind of in a way. So it was.
The quick turnaround was pretty remarkable.
And I love it. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm super excited for that one. So
yeah, I'm assuming they must have like had it greenlit before 2 was even like released, so they would probably been working on
at
it
least
for
had like pre-production
a while.
done.
we do it. No,
they're probably using the same engine or
Yeah.
something
Yes,
or
yeah.
whatever from RE2.
well, that's the great thing is RE7's like engine. They've been using that for the last 2 games, and I'm pretty sure they're gonna do it.
Oh, so they use that. So it has the same feel as
it feels and looks like the RE7 engine.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So they've been
very
just
interesting.
using that.
And just part of the announcement that they announced that Project Resistance was going to be kind of part of it, which
yeah,
is
that was
really
awesome.
cool.
That's
That was
just
a
like
surprise to me.
I think that's going to be a fun multiplayer. Like I wasn't going to buy it separately, but now that it's part of it,
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a go. So gentlemen, what do we think biggest moment was?
biggest game.
Biggest
game
announcement. Or biggest announcement.
So I'm leaning towards
I'm leaning towards Final Fantasy 7.
I'm leaning towards this might be disagreeing with you guys is the Breath of the Wild 2 announcement, just because I mean, I guess.
So you guys are both picking the only 2 I had, and now I'm gonna have to pick which one was bigger.
Yes.
I mean, if you said it first, then you would have.
Can I give an anecdote first?
Yeah, sure.
So now that she's gone officially, my girlfriend has left the building. I can say this. So
You confirmed this?
yes, I texted. So I played the long con here with Christmas. So remember this past episode I mentioned that my Switch broke.
Yeah.
I lost a lot of data. I had to get it back, and she lost all of her save files. That was false. I've been playing the long haul on surprising her with a Switch for Christmas with her save files already loaded on it because I already transferred the data over.
High five.
So she won't. This won't come out until she's already opened it. So that was like the big thing. I even like threw shade. Like I brought her to like the Microsoft store to have her like look at tablets and stuff like that. 'Cause she has no idea she's getting it.
Nice.
That's
So-
awesome. Can you record it?
Record what?
Her getting the Switch?
She might have some idea that she's getting it, but I've been trying my best to like throw her off the trail.
Okay.
Like I thought the Switch like losing the save files. I don't know. I was hoping that it would kind of throw her off trail. I wasn't sure, but
Yeah.
I just thought that was really cool. Wanted to mention that on the podcast because on the podcast last week, I literally only did that because I know she listens to the podcast, and I'm like, oh, that'll like
Hi, Ashley.
amplify that.
Wait a minute. If she listens to the
This one's coming out after she gets the present.
okay, good. Okay. Got it.
Oh, I thought this through. But anyways, going back to the decision, Matt, you're gonna go with Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
2
I mean,
announcement.
again, like I'm more excited about Resident Evil 3 Final Fantasy 7 than I am and Resident Evil 3 to be honest.
Yeah,
than I am
yeah,
Breath of the
yeah.
Wild. I'm not a big Zelda fan. Like I know you're kind of the big Zelda guy. It's not my kind of my favorite. I do enjoy those games.
And that's not necessarily what these awards are about, because I mean, if we were only paying attention to our favorite things, like for instance, I've said this many times, Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game. I do not consider it the best game ever made. It's just
Yeah.
my favorite game, you know.
What I would say is I know we've been hearing about Final Fantasy VII remake for I think was it 2015 at the E3 they announced that official trailer, and there's been kind of drips and drabs of new information and new trailers. So we've kind of been knowing that the PS4 is closing out next year. It's pretty much has to either come out at some point next year or they're gonna have to push it back to PS5, which was always a possibility. But I don't know. It didn't seem like a huge surprise as far as like Breath of the Wild 2, where I was like, oh, I didn't really have an idea that they were gonna come out with that. That it was gonna come
Yeah.
out soon. That it was gonna be kind of a sequel to this. They've already kind of gone in a different direction, and now they're kind of going to kind of build on that, which is interesting. Opens up a lot of questions about, are they going to use the same map? Is it going to be like, a World Destroyed where it's the same map but everything's a little bit different?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things that like were big announcements this year that could just be assumed like we knew what were coming out. Like Dan mentioned Resident Evil 3 to me before I had seen the direct, and I'm like, I thought that got announced like weeks ago, because like we'd gotten all those leaks of like the art and
Yeah.
stuff like
Well,
that.
that's why I was mentioning, the date.
Yeah,
was really
No,
well-
and which is huge because
Yeah.
like we knew Final Fantasy VII Remake was eventually going to come out, even though Matt all year kept saying like, I don't know if this is actually coming out or not.
Well, we had a discussion that was like, I don't think this is
Diablo 4 was the same thing. Like a few weeks before they actually announced it, kind of got leaked that was pretty much happening. Final Fantasy VII Remake, that was huge for me just because that just seeing that release date was just like, oh my god, it is happening. But like Matt said, I never had any doubt. I was always constantly looking up, like once every few weeks I would look up to see if there was any new information, and I was always just seeing these little tidbits of like the director saying like, we're still working on it, we're still pushing for it and all this other stuff. Breath of the Wild 2 though, that was like a complete out of nowhere. Was not expecting it at all. Like Nintendo already won. Like that was like a weird E3 where like, we got to the end of it and like it was Nintendo and one other studio that kind of won it at the end for me, and everything that came before that was just kind of crappy. I think it was Ubisoft, and this was before Ubisoft became a dumpster fire.
Yeah,
but,
before everything got pushed back.
that was like with their like whole Watch Dogs 2 and all this stuff. But like Nintendo, like
3.
just having like banger after banger after banger in that in their like little Nintendo Direct at E3, and then ending it with like, oh my god, they're actually making like a goddamn sequel to Breath of the Wild, and it's like, and we don't have enough information. Like Zelda has short hair. Is she gonna be a playable character? Is it gonna be the same map, or does it take place? What's going on? Like, I'm gonna have to agree with Matt on this one. I think Breath of the Wild 2
Hooray!
was definitely the bigger, even though obviously I'm more excited for Final Fantasy VII just because
Yes, it's
it's
kinda the
coming
same way, I
out in
feel.
March, and I'm getting the collector's edition.
Yeah, I have a hard time getting excited about like Dan was saying, games that are coming out in this vague future time that they don't mention, but it just seems like such a big
Like
big
I kind of
game,
knew
big
they would.
surprise.
I felt like they were going to make it, and it was just kind of a broad announcement, like, "Hey, we're gonna work on this eventually." So it was just like, "Oh, that's neat."
You thought they were going to make a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild?
Yeah, just for how successful it was, they sold more copies than Switches.
But all the Zeldas are successful, and they never really do that. I feel like.
No, except Skyward Sword.
Yes, well, so
But that was just the era it came out in.
I just think it was they already have the map done. The game kind of.
I don't know. I feel like if I'd asked you a few weeks before Nintendo announced it, what you thought.
No, I thought they would do another open world type of game. They got
Well, yeah, that, but like a direct sequel in the same overworld. That's pretty rare for a Zelda game, you know. Like
it's rare, but I mean,
Majora's Mask didn't even have the same overworld, but that was like the last time. Like that was a direct sequel. If you can kind of count Phantom Hourglass if you want.
Yeah. No, I had a feeling that they would use the same type of maybe engine, but I mean that even makes more sense that they would use the same.
Oh, I knew that they were going to use the same engine.
Yeah, so at that point, I knew
they had mentioned like, oh, this is kind of the way we want to make Zelda games going forward. I think it was the idea that it was like literally a direct sequel, like it was DLC that became too big for what it was worth, and they literally made like we're continuing the story about past it, which is good because I thought the ending to that game kind of sucked.
Oh, it did. It absolutely did. So, yeah.
So I was going to say, they're usually kind of tight-lipped with what games they make. I guess there's some counterexamples to this, especially with Metroid. But usually when they announce a game, that means they're pretty kind of into production with it, and they're going to release it. Like this, I wouldn't be totally surprised if this came out at the holiday of next year
compete with
systems. Like obviously there's like Metroid Prime 4, which they've been working on forever, but that was such an outlier that they actually had to announce that they restarted it. So that doesn't happen as often, I don't think, with Nintendo.
Probably why they don't announce things sooner is because like things like Metroid Prime 4 happens. Like who knows how many games that happened to that we just don't know about, you know?
Yep.
But yeah, all right. So official winner, Breath of the Wild 2 being announced at E3. So that's awesome. We got through that pretty okay.
Good for them. That's some good stuff to look forward to.
Yeah.
Well, it helps when it's an odd number. If it was 4, this